Good morning and namaste to all of you. Let's start the class with some prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhu Bhuva Swaha, Tatsavitra Varenayam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Diyo Yo Naha Prachodayat, Asto Ma Satgamya, Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya, Mrityorma Amritam Gamya. ओम सहनावतु सहनो भुनक्तु सवीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ओम शांति शांति शांति. In this class we are studying Prashnopanishad and we are done with the first chapter and with that with the first question also. And that question was asked by a young student, Kabandi, and he asked about the creation. And Rishi Piplad, he is the one who answered that question. Where are the creatures born? How did this creation happen? So now let's look at the second chapter. And in this one, this student's name is Bhargava. And he's asking about the devatas which are supporting the living beings. And among those devatas, who is the greatest? So here this young student is inquiring what exactly are the phenomenal factors of the presiding deities in the physical structure. Those are the devatas. So let's look at verse number 1 of this second chapter. Ath Hainam Bhargavo Vedharbihi Paprach Bhagwan Katyev Devaha Praja Vidharyantehe Katar Etat Prakashyante Ka Punar Esham Varisht Iti. Ath means then. Enam, him. Bhargavaha, whether be Bhargava, the Bhargava of Vidharva. Okay. Prach, asked. Bhagwan. Bhagwan is like to give respect to the Guru, Bhagwan, Lord. But in English, just like we say, Sir. Kati means how many. Ev means verily. Devaha, gods. Prajam, creatures. Vidharyante, support or maintain. Katar, how many. Etat, this. Prakashyante, manifest. Sa means who. Punha, again. Esham, of these. Vrishtaha, greatest. Iti means thus. So then Bhargav of Vidharva asked this question to the Guru. Oh Bhagwan, how many factors, how many devatas support the living beings? Which of them enlightens this? Again, who among them is the greatest? So how many? Who are they? How many? And who is the greatest? So this question has a deep implication. So this particular question inquires into the story of how the individual reacts of the world outside and what are the instruments by which he comes to his reaction. Because without these senses, we really cannot live. So if we look at the first question in the previous chapter was about the outermost world. And in stages, slowly and steadily, we'll go deeper and deeper. So from the outer world, how the creation came, now in the creation, how does this function? With whose support? So we'll see that we'll move towards, as we are going with these questions of these young people, we will move towards the subject. From the objective world, piercing into the subjective world. So the second question is inquiring into the construction of the physical structure and its maintenance also. Remember, in this question, the Dev means only that factor which enlightens, Devta. Or you can say that what are the instruments of knowledge? Or even the illuminator of this physical body. So naturally, the question is upon the different sense organs. Sense organs of the knowledge, which are called Gyanendriyas. But sometimes some people wonder why the disciple put the question in this fashion. Why even divide them? How many devatas who support the creature? But if you look deeply, the body of ours or the body of any creature cannot exist if the sense organs do not function in it. And we are all familiar with the sense organs, our eyes, our ears, our nose, touch, taste. This human body can exist if the eyes are not working. But if the eyes are not working and a person can't even hear, it's even more difficult. And if a person cannot even see or hear and even talk, it's impossible for this body to stay alive. So out of 5 sense organs, if 3 of its sense perceptions are gone, the body cannot function. So that's why these are called the devatas. So the question is perfectly intelligent and extremely sane. That who are all these devatas that support the body? Do we consider our sense organs as devatas? If we remember this, that they are the devatas, we will treat them as devatas. Okay? We'll respect them. We'll honor them. We will not abuse them. Devatas. So remember, the body cannot exist without the sense organs. And there's a reason for it actually. The egocentric concept has entered a physical form to gain its experiences from the outer world. And all these experiences from the outer world, they come inside us through the sense organs. Eyes see something, nose smell something, ears hear something, and that is the knowledge which goes inside. So if the 5 sense organs are not functioning, the egocentric cannot gain by that incarnation any experience for itself. So that's why that it leaves, says, I cannot function, I cannot experience. What is the purpose of me being in this body? It's almost like a house which is not functioning properly. Roof is leaking, doors are broken, walls are crumbling. The person who's living in it says, I'm going to leave this. I'm moving somewhere else. So this is what happens. So we got to consider them devatas. These are not just merely apertures on the 2 sides of our eyes or the nose or the ears. These are not the apertures. There is a devta behind it. the divine power. Sure, instrument is there, but the power is divine, Devata. So what Devatas exactly enlighten the instrument? That's what he's asking. These are all instruments. Eyes are instrument, ears are instrument, nose is instrument. So any given, see, eyes can only see the objects. The instrument is made just for that. The ears can only hear, they cannot see. So each instrument got their own particular job to do. But who is the controller? Who is the head of it? That's what he's asking. That means there must be some superior observer who in himself gathers all the observation and comes to experience the totality of it. Who is that? That's why he says that, who is that? So he is inquiring for that one great experience by the question when he says, who among them is the greatest? They are all devatas, but who is the greatest? Let me read the question again, because the rest of the chapter is the answer of this question or these questions. The Bhargav of Vidarbha. So Vidarbha is the name of the place. So he came from Vidarbha. Questioned the master, "O Bhagwan, how many factors support the living being? How many devatas support the living being? Which of them enlightens this?" So that means all these devatas are enlightening this body. Again, who among them is the greatest? Okay. Now let's look at verse number 2, where Rishi Piplad is answering this question. Tasmai sa ha vach akashah ha va eshah devo vayur agni apah prithvi vang man chakshu shrotram cha te prakashyah abhi vadanti vyamet banam avashtbhaya vidharayama. Tasmai, to him, sa means he. He means Rishi Piplad over here. Uvacha said. Eshaha, that. Devaha, God. Vayu. First Akash, Akash is the space, the sky. Vayu, air. Agni, fire. Apaha, water. Prithvi, earth. Vag, speech, organ of speech. Man, the mind. Chakshu, the eyes. Shrotram, ear. Cha means hand. Te means they. Prakashe, having manifested or with their power. Abhi vadanti. Abhi vadanti means they give that glory, they gave. Vayam, we. Etat, this. Vanam, body. Okay, that means a perishable body. Avashtbhaya, having held together. Vidharayamaha, support. To him, he replied, these devatas are verily the ether, space, air, fire, water, earth, speech, mind, eye, and the ear. They manifesting their glory. Abhivadanti, quarreled among themselves and said, we hold together and support this body. So in other words, they are all saying, these devatas are saying, we are the one who are holding the body together. We are all great. So Rishi Piplad is answering the question with the help of this story, which is given in another Upanishad. This is a technique that with the help of the story, answering the question. And that Upanishad is Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. That's where this story is given in detail. So the factors that support the body are instruments of knowledge, the instruments of action, presided over the mind. And he is hinting at the fact that these instruments are all governed by the 5 great elements. So the Samanya and the Buddhi and the 5 great elements together, they said, we hold this body together. We all know that sound cannot be created without space. Without sound, our ears would have been only meaningless holes. So sound is needed. And sound comes from the space. So all these great 5 elements are very important too. So the great rishis of old, they come to express the idea in their technical language. The ear is presided over by the devatas called the Dek. So there is a devata. And if there's no form in the outer world to be cognized by the eyes, the opening of 2 sides of the nose would have no meaning for us. Object could be in front of us. Your eyes could be wide open, but if there's no devata behind the eyes, you won't be able to perceive it. So there's a devata. So in the Rishi's language, he is declaring that eyes are presided over by the sun. It's like that language is also used in the stories. So the sense organs, the knowledge, the organs of action in us, and 5 great elements. That's what over here he means. Okay, all of them together, they hold this body together. And who is the greatest? Who illumines them? The various sense organs, and among them, who's the greatest? The teacher could have said very easily that, hey, this is the greatest. But instead of just giving the answer right away, he is giving us a story. So that is a technique of storytelling. So it's almost like a once upon a time, there was a great controversy between all these organs. Who's the greatest? So that is the story which goes into that Upanishad, so that the students can understand better. So let's look at part of that story in that next verse. Tan varishtaha pran uvach ma moham upadtha aham eva tat panchatha atmanam pravi bhajye etat vanam avashtbhaye vidharyamiti. Tan. Tan means Tan uvach. That means he said. Varishtaha, the chief, the greatest, the supreme. Pran, the vital energy. So this is from that story. Ma means do not. Moham means delusion. Apatat, fall, like a fall into or commit something. Apatat. Aham, I. Ev means verily. Etat, thus. Atmanam, myself. Panchadha, in 5 parts. So Panchadha Atmanam. So myself into the 5 parts. Pra vibhajye, having divided, vibhajan. Vanam, body. Etat means this. Avashtabhaya, holding. Vidharyami, support. And iti means thus. So Pran, the greatest of them said, don't be deluded. I alone, dividing myself 5-fold, support this body and keep it going. Okay. So in that Upanishad over there, the story goes, one by one, they all leave, because that was the eyes leave, then ear is gone, comes back. Even the intellect leaves, mind leaves, one by one, nothing happens, body is still okay. But then when the prana starts to leave, they say, no, we cannot function without you. So over here, this is only a little bit part of that story, which Rishi Piplad is saying. So he says that do not be deluded. Prana is saying, I alone, dividing myself 5-fold, support this body and keep it going. 5-fold, we are all familiar with according to the function of the prana, the 5 kinds of a prana in our body. Pran, apan, saman, vyan, udan. So this is 5-fold according to the function. Okay. So when the organs of action and knowledge, they start quarreling among themselves, Pran just stands up. So he quietly comes forward with a self-confidence, and he's advising to all of them. He says, don't be deluded. If you think you are greatest, you are delusional. Okay, so it's not that he's being arrogant. He's just, with his confidence, he's just telling them. So he informs them that he alone is the strength and the power which they are manifesting. He alone is the vital factor in the body. So Pran, dividing himself into 5 distinct channels of activity, feeds them all in their functioning and helps them maintain their activities and the experiences in life. That's why, as a yoga student, we should understand that pranayama is the soul of yoga. While you're doing your asanas also, your meditation also, your prayers also, is pranayama. Okay? Learning how to maintain and control and sustain the prana. Now let's look at verse number 4. Te ashardhana babhuv so abhimanaha udhurvam utkramat iv tasmin utkramtehe terehe sarvam ev utkramante tasminishch paratishthmane sarve ev pratishthantehe tadyatha bhakshika madhurkar rajan उत्क्रामंतम सर्वा एव उत्क्रामन्तेः तस्मिन् च प्रतिष्ठमानेः सर्वा एव प्रतिष्ठन्त एवं वांग मन चक्षु श्रोत्रम च ते प्रीताः प्राणम स्तुन्वन्ति. They means they. That means the other gods. Ashraddhana. Ashraddha. See, Shraddha is the faith. Ashraddha, without faith. Bhuv, became. Sa means he, and over here he means the prana. Abhimanat. Abhiman, that is like a ego in you. Udharvam, upward. Utkramate was going out. Iv means as if. Tasmin, in his, the chief prans. Utkramati, having gone out. At means thereupon. Itre, others. Sarve, ev, that means all. Pranaha, prans. Utkramante, got out. Tasmin, in his, the chief prana. Cha means and, pratishthmane, being established. Sarve, ev, all, also. Pratishthantehe, established. Tat yatha, that means as. Madhukar Rajanam, the king of the bees, that is called a queen bee, right? Queen bee. Utkramantam, in going out. Sarva, all. Ev means verily. Makshika, bees. Utkramante, go out. Tastin, in his. Paritishta mane, being established. Sarva, el, all. Pratishtante, established. So these words are again and again said, so a lot of repetition here. Evam das, vak, speech, manaha, mind, chakshu, eyes, shrotram, ears, cha means and, te means they, pritaha, being pleased, pranam, pran, stunvanti, praised. A very long verse. So, te ashradhana babhuv. That means when somebody doesn't have a faith, so that means they did not believe. Who did not believe? All these other devatas. So Pran said, I'm the greatest. They did not believe him. The principal Pran got irritated, Abhimana, and seemed as it were to go out of the body. He said, you don't believe me, I'm going to go out. When the Pran got up to depart, all others immediately had to get up too. And when it remained, so main Pran remained in its place, all the others remained too. Then he's giving us an analogy over here, just as when the queen bee leaves, all the bees leave the hive. And they return to it when she returns. And the mind, speech, eye, ear, and the rest being pleased, what did they do? Stunvanti, they praised the Pran then. So having the experience of that they cannot function, they cannot stay in this body without the Pran. So they had to go through that experience. Then they praised. So they were very arrogant before. Sometimes a person in extreme egocentric vanity can never understand, appreciate the truth. And that's what was happening. So Pran had to give them this bitter experience. So the Pran, understanding the truth, that these Indriyas are vain. They are showing greatness, but they are not great. So I need to teach them a lesson. So when Prana left, they all felt helpless. So this story is a pretty long story in that Brihad Aryanak Upanishad, but over here this Rishi is just giving it in a summary to us, or to this young student. And he's saying slowly and steadily, everything came back when the Pran came back. But to me, I think this analogy of the queen bee is beautiful. And we are all familiar with that. So whenever queen bee leaves the beehive, all the other bees, they leave. When she comes back, everybody comes back. Okay. So let's look at the next verse. Verse number 5. Eshaha agnihi taptihi eshaha surya eshaha prajneha Bhagwan eshaha vayu eshaha deva prithvi rai sat asat cha amritam cha yat. Esha, this, and this means prana. Agni, fire. Tapati, burns. Eshaha, this. Surya, sun. Again, eshaha, this. Prajanya, cloud. Bhagwan, Indra. Eshaha, this. Vayu, wind. Again, Esha means this. Devaha, bright, like a bright one. Prithvi, the earth. Ray, matter. Sat, asat. Sat is what is, asat is what is not. Sat and asat. Amritam, immortal. Cha means and, yat means what. As the fire, Pran, burns. So that means without the air, without the prana, fire can't even burn. As the sun, it shines. As the clouds, rains. As Indra, the prana rules. It is the wind, it is the earth, it is the moon, the devta. It is the both that which has form, that which is formless. From this verse, next 8 verses, we have beautiful pieces of glorification addressed to the prana. Prana is conceived as the nucleus of all energy, power and dynamism, both in the body, sat and asat, both in the body and even without the body in the universe. There's nowhere where prana is not. We can perceive it intuitively. We cannot see it, but we have to raise our intuition to that level to really perceive it. What this Shruti is trying to tell us, that prana is everywhere. And he's not talking about the air, which is in the atmosphere. The air we breathe in, but air is only a conduit to carry the prana. Just like a body is not the soul. Body carries the soul. The same way air carries the prana. So air we breathe in and out of our nostrils, but with the help of that air, there's a prana which is going inside us. So in order to understand the scriptural texts properly, we have to understand the word prana, which he's trying to use over here. That means the energy which vitalizes the matter in life. Okay, vitality comes from there. The total energy, Pran is the vital factor behind fire, he says. Pran is the one which is making the fire burn. Behind the sun also, we see the light and the energy. Pran there. It's a divine Pran. If Pran be the sun, we will have our scientific knowledge. Cannot but congratulate our rishis actually. How deeply they thought about it. that even the vision is because of the Prana. The clouds and the rains and the movement of the winds, that's all because of Prana. In our scriptures, even this wind, the air, they divide the movement of the wind in several categories. To be exact, 7 different types of wind. 7. I don't know how many of you know, but let me give you the names. There is a pravaha, Pravaha. That pravaha is the one which is moving the clouds. See, this is how much they dissected this universe, this rishis, pravaha. Then it's called avaha, Avaha, which causes the thunder. Avaha. Then there's a udvaha, Udvaha. Udvaha is the one which converts the sea water into vapor and causes rain. The next one is samvaha, Samvaha. That is the one which moves clouds in the sky, samvaha. Vivaha, Vivaha. That gives the forms and shapes to the clouds. Then parivaha, Parivaha. This is the one which keeps the Akash Ganga motionless. There's not just a Ganga on the earth, Akash Ganga also. Then there's a pravaha, Pravaha. With this wind, the souls travel. So in our scriptures, they talk about in detail about the winds also. They have given the names. So the 7 classes on the basis of their behavior, their direction. What do they do? But all of them cannot function without Prana. We have seen already. Okay, let me repeat the names. Padma is asking to. Pravaha, Avaha, Udvaha, Samvaha, Vivaha, Parivaha, and Paravaha. So in the previous chapter, we saw the Prajapati himself he made energy and the matter. He became the sun and the moon. Sun is the Prana, moon is the ray. And in the light of all this, now in this verse, he is concluding and saying that the Prana is the truth behind all that forms, as well as the formless. Murta and Amurta, or Sat and Asat. Entire gross world of elements can be divided into 2 groups actually, gross and subtle. Okay, the gross elements are fire, water, and earth, right? Those are gross. And the subtle elements are space and air. So 5 elements, 3 fall into the gross category, 2 into the subtle category. And gross elements are technically called Murta, with forms. And the subtle elements, Amurta, without form. Okay, so let me read it again. So he says, as the fire, Prana is the one which burns, helps the burning in the fire. As the sun, it shines. As the clouds, it gives rains. As the Indra, it rules. It is the wind, it is the earth, it is the moon, it is the devta. It is both that which has form and that which is formless. Okay, so it's like a glorification of the Prana in this verse. Because the student asked, who is the greatest? So Prana is the greatest among all. Body can function, as I said earlier, without one sense or two senses or three senses. But all the senses could be there, Prana leaves, they all fall apart. That's what he's telling us. Now let's look at one more verse. Para iv rathnabhau prane sarvam pratishtham richo yajushihe samane yagya kshatr brahmacha. Rathnabhau, in the navel of a wheel. Para, spokes. Iv means as. Prane, prana. Sarvam, all. Pratishtham, are established. Richa. Richa is the Rig Veda is called Richa actually. Normally when they use the Richa, Rig Veda, the mantras of the Rig Veda. Yajushihi, the Yajurveda. Samani, the Samveda, the summons of the Samveda. Yagya, sacrifice. Kshatram, Kshatriyas. Brahm, the Brahmins. Cha means and. So he says, as spokes in a wheel, in the prana, everything in the universe is fixed. The Rig mantras, the Yajurveda, and the songs of the Samveda. All yagyas. And when he says Kshatriya, that means all the dynamic activities. Kshatriyas are predominantly active, Rajasik. So all dynamic activities of Kshatriya and all spiritual endeavors of Brahmins. Okay, Brahmins are considered higher on the path of spirituality. Everything rests in the Prana. So the glorification of the Prana continues over here. And we are told that the entire universe rests and maintains itself as the Prana. And he uses this another analogy over here. The axle of the wheel are the spokes tightened. If the axle is loose, the spokes get off their tension and rim of the wheel loses its efficiency. So he says the entire universe of rhythm, all the laws and regulations is maintained in its strict nature because of the control of this prana. If the prans are functioning, everything is working fine. So even the very knowledge of the Brahm Vidya cannot be learned. The Vidya can be there, but without the Pran. So it can be taught only under the presence of the Pran. If the Guru is speaking, like a Rishi Piplat was speaking, so here listening and the hearing and the studying can happen only if the prans are functioning. So we need that dynamism of the prana in the body. Even after hearing the teacher, if the student needs to continue his reading and reflection, the manana, the pran has to be there. Without the pran, you cannot do the reflection. And ultimately, if we want to do the nididhyasana, the practice of it all, meditate it on all, we need the pran again. Everything is dependent upon the grace of the pran. So all these are possible. The Shravan, Manana, Nididhyasana, when the student is consistently graced by the prana. So that means the physical body and the intellect cannot function by themselves because they are nothing but the matter, right? Unless they are energized with the prana. In fact, the Karma Kand also. So that's why he's mentioned over here the Yajur. In the Yajurveda, there are a lot of Karma Kand. In order to do all that Karma Kand, we need the prana. In fact, all those great mantras, the rishis, they talk about do the pranayama first. There are a lot of pranayama mantras in the Vedas to emphasize this point. That in a human body also the prana is important. No ritualism starts without invoking the prana actually, if you pay attention to it. In the Sandhya Vandan also, I'm sure you're all familiar with the Sandhya Vandan. Ordinary devotional practices. There's an invocation of the prana. And these ideas have been indicated by the term Kshatriya and the Brahman. It's not the castes. These Kshatriya and Brahman words are used over here for the active qualities and dedicated work which Kshatriyas do. And the nobler and subtler qualities of the head and the heart of a Brahman. So all these Kshatriya-like activities, Brahman-like visions are possible only when we are graced by the prana. So that's why I said these verses are for the glorification of prana. Glorification of prana. So we'll continue with this theme next week from verse number 7. Om Purnamada Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnase Purnamadaye Purnameva Visheshyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much.